Welcome back to Focal Point AF for Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Great to have you in the conversation. Just a couple other things, close the loop on this whole environmental thing. This is an incredible story out of California. A guy named Kaveh Kamune, he owns a Nissan Leaf. So he goes to pick up his kid from tennis practice at Chambly Middle School, and I guess they've got some kind of external outlet there near the tennis court. So he plugs his Nissan Leaf in there for about 20 minutes to charge it up. He gets arrested a week later and has to spend 15 hours in jail for stealing from the county because he didn't ask permission from anybody to plug his car into the outlet. And they figured that it was about 5 cents worth of electricity. And because he stole, quote, unquote, didn't even know he needed to ask anybody for permission, it's just an outlet that's sitting out there. He had to spend 15 hours under arrest. Now, you know, in a biblical form of justice, you make restitution. When it's a crime against property, it's restitution plus a penalty of maybe 25%. In some cases, it's much higher. But in this case, let's say if a biblical mode of justice would have been followed, he would have been told, look, you owe the county 25 cents. 5 cents for stealing the electricity and a penalty of 20 cents for doing it, and we're square. You don't have to get arrested. You don't have to get handcuffed. You don't have to get shoved in the back of a patrol car. You don't have to spend 15 hours in a cotton-picking cell, crime eminently. So, again, I think the Bible has the kind of better idea on that whole approach to justice. And, I've lived out in the West Coast for a long time. Things are wacky up in San Francisco. Now the city is actually considering a ban on releasing butterflies at weddings. That's apparently a tradition there. You have a special event. You know, some places they release these white doves. In San Francisco, they release butterflies. And there's a whole cottage industry. You can buy butterflies. They come, and at the right moment, and the wedding, they will release all these butterflies, and they will fill the air. And environmentalists are all up in arms over this, claiming that this represents some kind of threat to the indigenous population. And, of course, we know that butterflies are notoriously aggressive carnivores. So you can understand why people and wildlife would need to be protected from the carnivorous butterflies. Anyway, now grab a clip number 9, Rob. This is a clip I played yesterday, and I want to devote this segment to this because this is pretty important stuff here that we are dealing with. I mean, this is sort of enormously important when you get right down to it, because this is a topic that we visited this topic frequently on this program. And I want to take calls. We'll take some calls in the next segment on this topic. So the number is 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. And we'll take calls on this topic in the next segment after the news. We'll need the rest of this segment to kind of get this content into your hands. But it has to do with the fact that we have a lawless president, that we have a president who is not constrained by the law, nor is he constrained by the Constitution. And this is enormously dangerous because there is nobody who can stop him. There is nobody who can stop him. I mean, the Congress can do it through impeachment. That's why impeachment is in the Constitution. That's how you can stop an out-of-control president is through the process of impeachment. That can be done. It's in there. And I've said before, we do not want a military coup. We do not want another civil war. That's not how we want a transfer of power to take place. That's not what we want. That's not the direction we want to go. God help us if we go that direction. But something's got to be done. That's the point. And that's what these guys are saying. Now, this is Michael Cannon. He is a health expert with Cato, and I played this soundbite yesterday. We didn't have time to kind of ponder it and reflect on it and talk about it together, you and me as a listening audience. But this is pretty amazing. Now, Cato Institute, it's a libertarian, so they're into liberty. They're not conservatives, they're libertarians, and I've got my issues with them, and we'll see that in the next hour when I play that excerpt from that interview with Scott Sloan up at WLW in Cincinnati. There is a profound difference between us and libertarians on social issues. But Michael Cannon, they're about liberty. They're about liberty. That's why they call themselves libertarians, because they pursue liberty. He's with the Cato Institute, and he's giving testimony yesterday before a congressional committee. And that's what's so significant about this. Michael Cannon, who's a smart guy, he's a sharp guy. I read a lot of his stuff. I've used his stuff on this program before. He has brought this topic, this subject of the consequences of a lawless president. He's now elevated this where it's now part of the official discourse at congressional levels because he talked about it. He addressed this issue with sitting members of Congress. So this isn't just talk radio now anymore. This is a pretty smart guy, very experienced in public policy, telling these congressmen here, these are the consequences if we allow this out-of-control, lawless president to continue to do what he is doing. And, he starts by talking about, well, how many, the fact that we have a president that will take military initiative. He did it in Libya and other places with no congressional authorization. Now, you can do it. A president can do it, but he's required to come to Congress within 60 days and justify what he's done. And this president did not do that with Libya. He just went in there on his own and essentially declared war all by himself. And the Constitution says, no, that's something that's for Congress and Congress alone. So he begins with that as a backdrop and then moves forward. Let's listen.
Better than I do how many bombs the president has to drop without congressional authorization before that becomes war. I don't know the actual number. But I think what Mr. King was getting at is, there is one last thing to which the people can resort if the government does not respect the restraints that the Constitution places on the government. Abraham Lincoln talked about our right to alter our government or a revolutionary right to overthrow it. And that is certainly something that no one wants to contemplate. But as I mentioned in my written and my delivered testimony, if the people come to believe that the government is no longer constrained by the laws, then they will conclude that neither are they. That is why this is a very, very dangerous sort of thing for the president to do, to wantonly ignore the laws, to try to impose obligations on people that the legislature did not approve.
Now, it's interesting to me. So I want you to catch this is enormously significant. I mean, this is probably the most important thing that anybody has said anywhere this week, where he says, look, there's one last thing to which the people can resort if the government does not respect the restraints the Constitution places on the government. There's one last resort, and that essentially is the revolutionary overthrow of that government. There is one last thing to which the people can resort if the government does not respect the restraints the Constitution places on it. Abraham Lincoln talked about our right to alter our government or our revolutionary right to overthrow it. Now, it wasn't just Abraham Lincoln that talked about that. I've got my copy of the Declaration of Independence open in front of me, dog-eared and beat up and underlined. And it's not just Abraham Lincoln. It was Thomas Jefferson and the delegates at the Continental Congress who issued the Declaration of Independence. Remember, this is what Jefferson, I'm reading to you now from the Declaration, that it is the responsibility of government to secure the rights, unalienable rights to life, liberty, and property. That's the job of government. It's not to give rights. It's not to grant them. It is to secure them, to guarantee them, and to protect them. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And listen to this, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, that is, rather than protecting our right to life, liberty, and property, the form of government begins to infringe on those rights, to threaten those rights, to take those rights away. Government is now taking away the right to life. It is taking away the right to liberty. It's taking away the right to property. Then this is what the founder said. It is the right of the people. Now, when they refer to the right of the people, what they mean by this is an unalienable right. This is one of the unalienable rights that the people have, that has been given to us by the Creator. And this is a right that belongs to the people, you'll notice. Doesn't belong to the government, doesn't belong to the states or to state governments. This is a right that belongs to the people. And it is the right of the people the unalienable God-given right of the people to alter or abolish it. That is a form of government that is destructive of those ends. It is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. You know, and Thomas Jefferson goes on to say, look, these things should not be done for light and transient reasons. Absolutely, totally agree. But what Michael Cannon is saying, look, if you've got a lawless president who is out of control, and because he ignores the constraints of the law and he ignores the constraints of Congress, the last option left then for the people is the same option that was our founders exercised. And that is the right to alter or to abolish the form of government that is destructive of these unalienable rights. Instead of protecting them, it threatens them, takes them away, and to institute new government. And Michael Cannon is saying, look, we're getting pretty close to that place. This is a very, very dangerous place that the president has put the United States in and put the American people in, where he's imposing obligations on the people that the legislature did not approve and that the Constitution does not authorize. So in essence, and I've got a couple of sound bites to play when we come back out of the news that kind of amplify this, one from Ted Cruz and one from a liberal law professor at George Washington University, talking basically about the same thing. So essentially what Michael Cannon is saying is, look, President Obama is King George III. And we know what happened because of the tyranny, the long train of abuses and usurpations by King George III. It led to the altering and abolishing of one form of government and the instituting of a new. Michael Cannon saying we may be on the verge of seeing the same thing happen today. Focal Point AFR Talk.